Okay, yes, welcome to episode 5. We are talking about creating student-centered classrooms for more energy, more productive prep time, spending less time after school getting things ready because your students are helping you. If you're new to me, welcome, welcome. I'm thrilled to have you here. My name is Lauren Monique, and I am originally a teacher from BC, and now I support teachers as a mentor online. So I'm super thrilled you're here. And today I am really excited because this actually came to me from one of my teacher clients about she wanted to have more time outside of school, and she knew that she was spending a lot of time supporting her kids, and she wanted to find ways that she could let go a little bit of that responsibility. So if that is you, we are going to dive into this today. And even if that isn't you, maybe you've already got a few different things going on. Maybe you've got some centers, maybe you've got some classroom jobs. I am sure this episode is going to give you a ton of inspiration and ways to make teaching more sustainable for you. So I remember a few weeks ago, I was sitting in a restaurant, and it was this beautiful restaurant downtown. I live outside of Vancouver, and it was this beautiful French restaurant downtown. And it felt so special that I could even be there. It was like a Tuesday. And I left my children behind with my husband, and I was sitting here, and they had like this lovely, like quiet, like French music on, and the lights were dim, and it was this beautiful, beautiful restaurant. And I just remember feeling so grateful that I was even there, and then I got to look at this beautiful menu. And the reason I was there was because my lovely friend invited me to dinner, and I was so thrilled. So we were chatting, and the reason she invited me specifically to this restaurant is because it is her in-laws' restaurant. So it is her partners, her fiancés. Um, it is his dad's and mom's restaurant that they created, and it's this beautiful, elegant restaurant that they created that they built from scratch, and now it's a very well-loved and well-regarded restaurant in the city. And we were sitting there, and we asked to move so we could sit in this lovely little spot in the back. And so her husband or fiance, her fiance was our server for the night. And it was a lovely experience. I loved it. It was so amazing being able to actually leave my house and the regular day-to-day routine of making dinner and cleaning up and putting the kids to bed and all that kind of stuff. If you were a parent, you understand. But the reason I'm bringing this up is when we were at the restaurant, I have met her father-in-law before many times, but he wasn't there. Of course, he wasn't there because it was a Tuesday, but his restaurant was still running. And he had, his sons work there at the restaurant. They're servers, they're cooks, there's, you know, hostesses, all that stuff. I mean, as any restaurant, right? But he is the owner, and we don't expect him to run the whole restaurant and be the dishwasher and the cleaner and the cook and and clean things and all of the different jobs in the restaurant, because if he did, the restaurant would not run well. He needs to free himself up to look over and see, how is the restaurant running as a whole? What kinds of new recipes can we create? What kinds of new marketing, how are guests feeling in the restaurant? What kinds of because I mean, this is a really elegant restaurant. What kind of, nice meals or nice things can we add for the season? Like, he's thinking of those bigger picture things. Would he be able to invent new recipes and, look over everyone and make sure that all his staff are happy and are supported and all that stuff? Would he be able to do that if he was also washing dishes? Probably not. Now, I'm not saying he can't wash dishes from time to time, that he's above that. No. But what I am saying is, if we are doing all the tasks in our classrooms, and we also want to have room to differentiate. We want to create different engaging lessons. We want to be able to support struggling learners because let's be real, after the pandemic, we have huge learning gaps right now. Are we going to be able to do those higher level, high value things if we're also, going around and picking up candy wrappers? Halloween's just over. So at the time of this recording, are we going to be able to do that if we're picking up candy wrappers and also organizing the computers and, doing all these little tasks around the classroom? My argument is no. And truly, I don't think I did have classroom jobs when I was in the classroom, but I think now that I run my own business, I see it in a new way that I would argue that we need to stop looking at our classrooms or as our jobs as teachers as just being there to serve the students. I think we need to start treating our classrooms, and I'm going to give you two analogies. You can pick the one that works best for you. Either like a business or like a coach. So if you're a business owner, you can't be doing everything if you're running a restaurant, for example. Or if you are a coach, and I'm guessing if you're listening to this, many of you might be because a lot of us coach after school. My husband, for example, if we're the coach, we can't be on the field doing it for the students who are like in the soccer team. Like we need to actually be noticing and overviewing and deciding, okay, this kid needs to play in this position. Okay, I'm not a coach, but I'm going to bear with me. This kid needs to play in this position. And I can see that they're struggling with this, defense. We need to practice with that in our next practice. Like they're overviewing, they're calling the shots. They're overlooking things. They're not in it all the time. And so that's what we need to be doing in our classrooms. We can't always be doing the nitty-gritty if we want to do those higher value tasks. And I'm talking again, higher value tasks are the tasks that are going to be looking at student learning. How are our kids progressing? Are we looking and saying, okay, this kid is struggling. Who can I come and support right now? If we're always either in front of the class, or if we're always doing small little things, just trying to keep the classroom together, we're not going to be able to do those higher value tasks. So we're trying to free you up as a listener. We're trying to free you up in this episode and show you how you can be a little bit freer in the classroom, create more systems so that the kids are taking more responsibility of the community so that you can do those higher impact tasks. So I wanted to give you some concrete ways today of how you can do that. So if you're with me, you're ready, you're like, yes, bring it on. I want to rise up a little bit more, and I want to bring in more responsibility to my students, because not only is that going to give you more energy because you're not just pouring all your energy into your students all day. They're also going to be giving you energy back because they're supporting you. They're supporting the classroom. And it's like this beautiful, like, energy. And truly, I mean, you can even do this. Like when I used to work in Montessori's, we did this even with 3-year-olds. I mean, they were basic, but they still did things to contribute to the classroom environment, right? And so the more we can elevate you, the more you're going to have your energy back, and the more you're giving your students responsibility, and they're learning to become more responsible citizens. I really think it's a win-win. Now, before I get into some of the strategies or ideas to get you started, one thing that I want to stop first is for you to reflect and think about your initial thoughts around letting go of some of that control. So sometimes we have a hard time letting go of control and like giving kids the chance to do some grading, for example, or having certain responsibilities in class, or leading into more student-centered stuff. Sometimes it's just like, I haven't had the time, or I need some more ideas. I need some more how-to. But other times it's like, I'm having a hard time giving up control because I'm worried they're not going to do it as well as me. And so if that's you, that's totally okay. I'd love for you to think about as you're teaching your kids to take on more responsibility in your classroom, um, if you imagine it almost like you're teaching them to drive, okay? So you're teaching them to drive a car. Are you willing to let them crash the car? Not badly, okay, but like, are you willing to let them crash the car? Or, and like mess up your systems, make a mess of something, lose something, whatever? Does that idea feel like really like scary to you? Like, as I say that, do you feel like a lump in your throat, or like, are you like tensing up, like with worry, like what if something bad happens? Or are you thinking to yourself, we can handle it? So just notice that, because if you're thinking, okay, maybe I'm going to be frustrated for a moment, but I'll let it go and we'll move forward. Awesome. But if you're starting to feel like, oh my gosh, that sounds scary. What if the classroom falls apart? What if the kids get rude? What if like the classroom management goes out the window? What if my kids can't handle it? All that kind of stuff. It's good to know where your students are at and how much they can do. But B, also really just checking in with yourself and going like, is this something that I'm really scared to do? And if that's true, that's okay. We just want to take little small steps towards relinquishing control, just very, very gradually, rather than feeling like you have to have 26 jobs for all 26 kids in your class. So let's get some ideas as to how you can practically implement this in your classroom. So the first thing I want you to think about, I'm going to give you a couple of kind of questions to reflect on as you're listening to this. Maybe you're driving to school, maybe you're doing the dishes, maybe you're at the photocopy room. So here's some thoughts to reflect on. So the first is to identify some main challenges or irritating moments during your school day. So when you think about your school day, what are some times during the day that always irritate you? Maybe that's like when you walk into the classroom and you have a vestiaire, the word will come to me, a cloakroom, and you look at the cloakroom and it's always a disaster. Maybe that drives you crazy. Or maybe it's like when you go to look at your supplies, where all the kids leave their pencils and pens and glue sticks and stuff, and it's just a disaster and there's glue sticks all over. Maybe that's what's really irritating you. So for one, think about what are some of the irritating sticky points during the day or moments of transition that are difficult. Maybe there is a moment to give more student responsibility and create a routine there. Or to think about a time that's really time consuming. I've brought up this a few times now, but if you're spending 15 minutes a day, if you've got like one-on-one devices and you're spending 15 minutes at the end of the day just organizing the devices and making sure they're all plugged into the right spot, you don't need to do that. You do not need to do that. That is not a high value task that you can be doing. So the first thing is to identify the problem times during your day, either something that's really irritating or something that's really time consuming. And that can start to give you some ideas of what you could implement. And I'll give you some concrete ones, but I don't like us to just create jobs or routines just because the classroom does, like the teacher down the hall did them. I like them to be specific for you and your own kids, because you could even have routines that worked really well for you last year that don't work well this year. So think about what are some problem moments during your day that can inspire you to create a new routine to address them. Or another question to ask yourself is this: does this have to be done by me? Does this have to be done by me? This, if you really take this on, can be a game changer. You can ask yourself this every time you go to sit down and do some grading. Does this have to be done by me, or can I find a way to have this done by my students in class? When you go to pick up random wrappers on the ground, you can think, does this have to be me, or can this be done by another kid? Absolutely. Even in grade 1, they can help you with that. When you take attendance, you can think, does this have to be me, or could it be done by someone else? So if you can think as you go through your day, does this have to be me, or could it be done by another kid? you will notice just how many repetitive tasks you're doing that don't need to be done by you. You can give it to a kid. And better yet, stay, and I wasn't even planning on talking about this, but I'm just going to go there. Stay as much as you can in your zone of genius. This is so energizing. So your zone of genius, we can't do this all the time in the classroom, but hear me out. Your zone of genius is not just something you're really good at. It's something that energizes you, that gives you a spark that you love to do. So we can spend time in our zone of genius. Like for me, I know my zone of genius is helping people plan out and organize their ideas. I do it with business owners. I do it with teachers. I love to do that. I thought it was easy for everybody, but I realized it's something that I truly love to do. I get so excited even thinking about it right now, and I'm really good at it. Like that's one area of zone of genius for me. But we also have like a zone of excellence is something that we're good at, a zone of competence of things that we can kind of handle, but not that well. And then I think a zone of drudgery is the fourth one. This is I can link it in the show notes. I think it's Hendricks that came up with this, but the zone of drudgery is things you absolutely hate and you really are terrible at. If we can notice some of those tasks that we don't like and we're not very good at, and we know that there are other kids in our class, especially if you've got kids grades 4 or 5, especially 6 and up, and you can give it to a kid who literally has that in their zone of genius, please do that. Please do that. So for example, a lot of teachers that I work with will say, I'm really creative. I am not a very organized person. And so when it comes to like getting, absent student work, for example, organized, that's not their zone of genius and it's drudgery. It's like, oh, do I have to that's not fun if you're not a person that likes to organize. But I promise you, there is a kid in your class, if you teach grade 6 and up, who loves organizing. Truly, if you love organizing, you know what I'm talking about. But some people look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, trust me, that was me. I loved it when I was a kid. And I've always had a classroom with a kid who loves organizing things and like color coding things and setting everything up just so. Like that's me. And there is a kid in your classroom like that. Why are you getting little things organized when there is a kid in the class who could do it better than you? Let them do it. Let them do it. Likewise, if you're not very good with tech and you teach grade 10, why are you setting up your own tech? Let the kid do it. Let the kid who's naturally good at tech problem solve your tech. I mean, I'm not that like even when I was, I don't know, 28, I'm pretty sure my kids were teaching me things about how I could set up my, displays and things like that with my phone and my iPad. Like there are kids that are and I'm honestly really good with tech, I've realized as time has gone on, but they knew other things. So I got them to do it. Why would I do it? So identify the problem. That can be a really good starting point. Does this have to be me? That can be a really good starting point. Or what do I love to do and I'm naturally good at? And what are things that I hate doing that I'm terrible at? Maybe it's not my zone of genius. Could someone else do this in my classroom? And if that's the case, that would be a perfect classroom job for you. So those are some guiding questions. I'll share a couple of classic classroom jobs and student-centered ideas, but honestly, once you have those guiding questions, then you can go on Pinterest and, chat with friends and things like that. And you'll get lots more ideas. And if you're in intentional teaching, you can ask during a Clarity Collab call. But I wanted to give you a couple to start with, but truly the most impactful ones that you can create are based on some of those guiding questions. Identify the problem. Could this be done by somebody else? And what is in my zone of genius and what is in my zone of like competence or drudgery? And can I give those things to a student? Like another example. Okay, here's my first example, classroom jobs. I am a very, are into Myers-Briggs. I am an INFJ, which means in the end, I'm intuitive. I'm a really intuitive person. I can get new ideas. I have like my head in the clouds as I'm talking to someone. I can sense where they're at. I am not a very like grounded in the person kind of in the moment kind of person. I'm like up in the clouds. And so I tend to be a little forgetful. And so I have to write things down a lot to deal with that. But I would get into teaching and I would get so into the flow of things that I'd be like, that I would forget to hand tests back or something like that. Right. And so one of my classroom jobs, because remembering little details, I am a detail oriented person, but yeah, I'm not super timely, I would say. Like, it wasn't really my thing, and I would forget stuff. So I would give a kid a classroom job to be my reminder. 5 minutes, and you could do this on your phone too, but I like to give it to a kid because I don't know, it was easier. I had a kid who was my classroom reminder, and anytime I had to do something at the end of the day or at the end of the class, I would ask my reminder when it popped into my head, "Hey, can you remind me to give back our marked assignments at the end of at the end of the block?" And they said, "Sure." And every single time, if you have a kid who's really good at remembering those kinds of things, not my zone of genius, um, they would remind me, and then I'd be like, "Perfect, thank you so much. Here are our marked assignments, everybody." So, yeah, keep to your zone of genius whenever you can. Get clear on what the things are that you love and that you're really good at, and if there are things that aren't in there that are easily given to a kid, give it to a kid. Another one could be a secretary. So this goes, to the idea, I mean, honestly, I'm naturally organized. I still gave this to a kid because it was just so much easier. I had a student, and this was with my grade 8s, 9s, and up, but I would even do it. I think I could do it even with grade 4s. I don't know if I could do it below. It would depend on the group. But if you have absent kids, you have one kid who is responsible for noticing who's absent, and they will always notice. It's amazing. And then anytime you give a handout, they write the kids' names who are absent. They take extras, they write their names, and then they put it in your folder or the kids' portfolio or wherever it goes so that when the kids come back to school from being absent, all of their missed work or handouts or things like that are waiting for them there rather than you having to scramble to find extra photocopies. So that's a secretary. And then another one could be hander-outers. You can think of a better word if you want, but hander-outers. You could do this even with kindergartens, grade 1s. They're the kids that are responsible for handing things out. And one idea for the student-centered learning kind of a thing. Again, this is like taking you out of always teacher directed and making it a little bit more student centered. One of my favorite ways was to have little mini whiteboards. One day I had a kid give me a gift card to a like a teacher store, which was awesome. That's how I bought them. But you could buy them. You could use even just white paper if you wanted to. But I would have them in groups and then I would ask a question before we dove into a certain lesson or topic. I would write it on the board and then I'd have a kid groups brainstorm ideas of what they know about that topic and they would write it on their mini whiteboards. They love writing on the mini whiteboards. And the cool thing about that is often they learn from their peers. And I think before I started doing this, I underestimated how much my students would actually know, that I didn't have to teach them, that they could learn from one another. So that was a great way to involve the kids and have them learning from one another. And then I could fill in the gaps when we had a discussion afterwards, and it's super low prep. I love it. And again, I would do that probably maybe with grade 4s. This is probably more of a middle school thing. But I'm guessing if you teach grade 1, 2, you probably have a lot of centers already. So I hope that you found this helpful today, this episode all about student-centered. I hope you feel inspired to let go of a little bit more responsibility, shine more in your zone of genius so you've got more energy and you're not doing those things that you loathe, that you're not just the one giving and giving and giving to the classroom, that your kids are giving back to the community and to you as well. And the beautiful thing about that too is when you have more energy, you're not going to arrive to your prep times feeling too exhausted to get anything done. Of course, sometimes you are, but when your kids are giving back to you too, that's when you're going to have more energy to actually get things done during your prep time. You're going to be able to make so much better, like way better time at your, make more, make the best of your time at school. But if this has inspired you and you want to make even better. Oh my goodness, why can't I say this? If you want to use your prep time even better and more efficiently at school, I would love for you to download my free guide called The Intentional 10. And that is going to show you how you can save an hour or more a week doing your prep work. And it will help you so much make the most of your prep times, and really save you a ton of time. So if you would like that download, it is available in the show notes. You can download it. And I would love to hear from you. If you found this episode helpful, please send me a DM on Instagram. I am Lauren Monick. I would love to hear from you. So, hope you found this episode helpful, and I will see you next week on the Intentional Teacher Podcast.